Hey, it's Ben on Box and Ballers, and just as we were recording the preview for the Champions League final, there's been some breaking news over in Spain to do with Atletico Madrid and their transfer ban. Simon Harrison, he is a writer, freelance for many La Liga publications. He specialises in Spanish football. Simon, what is this? What's happened? It seems like it's all going down at the moment for Atletico, and it's not great news.
Yeah, I mean, the news that's come out with the whole task ban being upheld, it essentially means that it could set Atletico back a season. They won't be allowed to register any new players until January. So obviously it does leave the window of opportunity there to potentially bring in players and then for them to wait, as they did at Barcelona with Arda Turan and Alex Vidal. But I mean, you can't see players setting aside 6 months of their career to kind of twiddle their thumbs and train and do little else. It essentially means that there's been a lot of talk this summer about certain players leaving Atletico Madrid. I mean, in the last week, in the last couple of months even, you've got Antoine Griezmann linked heavily with Manchester United, and the player himself, I mean, the comments that he makes, it makes it very easy for the press to continue on with this tirade. And then also you've got Theo Hernandez and Lucas Hernandez, the brothers. Both of them have been linked, one of them with a move to Real Madrid and the other with a link to Manchester City. And what it would mean is if these players go, they can still go, even though this ban has been upheld. It just means that it will be very, very difficult for Simeone to replace these players. And obviously with the talk also about Alexander Lacazette, he was meant to be coming in. I mean, it seemed to be, as hopeful as possible for Atletico, given that, Griezmann seemed to be posting a lot more on social media with Lacazette than he might usually. So people were already starting to connect the dots and think, well, we could have an extra person in our French connection up top. But that won't be happening unless the player is prepared to, make that personal sacrifice to wait around and be eligible at a much, much later date. So, yeah, not the best news for Atletico, definitely.
So they can still agree a transfer to buy, but they just can't register the player. Is that right?
Yeah, I believe it's going to be the same sort of situation as that Barcelona had. It's the same situation as well that Real Madrid managed to avoid. So I think with this one, it was always going to look a bit tough. I mean, reports came out this week that Atletico were facing about 50, maybe 60 cases to do with how players are being used and bought, and perhaps it wasn't necessarily aligning with what UEFA would like. And with the cases with Real Madrid and with Barcelona, there weren't so many cases. I mean, less than a dozen, that kind of thing. So it was always looking likely that Atletico were going to see this ban maintained, and that's the way that it's turned out. And I mean, I think really, if Simeone was going into the summer thinking that he couldn't buy any extra players with the squad that he's got, I don't think he'd be too worried. But I think the fact that the likes of Manchester United or Manchester City could still pay the release clauses for players such as Griezmann or Lucas, then that kind of rips, part of the spine out of the team, which Simeone might have planned for the future. And what it also means is that Griezmann, he won't be seeing any players coming in short term to show that Atletico have that ambition, that they're going to be taking that extra step in the big competitions, because he's said recently that, with Atletico, that they've been almost there, but not quite. And, that can't be resolved this summer if they can't sign anyone.
Well, I was going to say, I've got a statement here from Atletico now, which I'll read to you. They're saying this ruling is unjust, poses an unfair disadvantage in comparable cases, and causes an irreparable damage to our club. So do you think by that they find that it's unfair on them? And do you think that it's unfair on them from what you know about the situation?
Well, I mean, I would say that them in that press release mentioning it being unfair compared to, other situations, I mean, that would be comparing
right?
it to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've seen Barcelona, they've been punished, and then you've got Real Madrid, who managed to, get away with having an actual ban. And then now you've got Atletico, whose ban has also been maintained, and they've had a slight reduction in the fine that they were going to be given, but obviously that's not the big thing, really. I would definitely say it's a case of Atletico thinking, well, Barcelona were punished, we've been punished. Why do Real Madrid get away with it? But obviously you've got to look at each thing in isolation, and the fact that the reports came out with about 50 or 60 cases against Atletico in this particular, legal discussion. I mean, I don't know how they can quite expect to have the same sort of playing field as the previous two clubs, how they went into it. So, I don't think it's unfair. I mean, obviously, there's grounds for this, and I think that from what the reports have suggested, that Real Madrid had much better arguments against, and that is why they saw their ban lifted. So you can't really say that it's unfair. I mean, I would definitely agree with the fact that it will be irreparable damage. I mean, it could really, really derail the project that Simeone has got going. It could see, the momentum that they've built up that's been positive over the last year. If Griezmann goes, all that momentum goes for me. I mean, Gameiro, he hasn't lived up to his reputation as of yet. Yeah. If he was to go, then they've got the likes of Angel Correa, who hasn't really produced with any regularity. They could have some players returning from loan deals, but aside from that, I mean, they're really going to struggle to be the threat and really close the gap on the top two in La Liga.
I find the second part of this statement interesting. They go on to say, as of today, we'll work to close the ongoing operations as soon as possible and register players on January the 1st. Does that say to you that they're going to stop negotiations and try and get these players to stay at their clubs and then go for them again in January the 1st? Or does this tell you what you said earlier, that they may agree the fees with clubs like Lyon, with maybe Chelsea for Diego Costa, and then register the players on January the 1st?
I mean, I think that really what they need to be looking at is kind of sorting out the futures of these players that might leave before anything else, because they've really got to have some kind of contingency plan in place. I would definitely say that the players that they've been linked to the most would be Lacazette, Sandro from Malaga. I mean, Diego Costa, both the player and the club have said that, there would be an opportunity for him to return if that was the way that things worked out. Mm-hmm. But on an individual basis, I mean, it's going to be tough to ask any players to, sit around and just train and not play, a la Arda Turan and Alex Vidal. I mean, I can't see any players being right at the top of their game to be being prepared to do that. Lacazette has said that, he's at a crossroads in his career, that he won't be playing for Lyon again, that kind of thing. So he's kind of put the pressure on that he needs to make a move. And I can't really see a player of his caliber being prepared to wait. With the Barcelona case in the past, I mean, with Alex Vidal, that was a huge step up, and he really felt like he was completing something which he'd wanted since he was very young, to play for Barcelona. And with Arda Turan, I mean, you can say perhaps cynically that with the stage that he's at in his career, maybe that had something to play in all the negotiations. But when you look at players such as Diego Costa or Lacazette or whoever it may be, those kind of players, I mean, they're in you'd say basically like the peak of their career, and I don't think they can really sacrifice, even if they think it might be, where they would like to make their long-term home at Atletico. Maybe that would be best looking at it from January rather than, joining in the summer and then having, a lot of uncertainty about when it might be that they'll be able to play.
Now, you've said that this can't affect players leaving, but for every Manchester United fan, they'll want this cleared up, Simon. Griezmann. Now, heavily linked with United. I don't know what the reports are in Spain at the moment, but a lot of people saying that he has agreed terms with United. Now it's just a case that United needs to match the release clause, and then nothing stopping him leaving, only him saying, no, I don't want to go, will stop the transfer from happening. Is that the case? What is the case in your view?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of conflicting reports, but the fact that Griezmann has been so active in the media over the last couple of weeks, I mean, he's giving interviews like every 4 or 5 days, which seem to point in different directions. And I'm not sure whether it's just that he wants to lead the media a bit of a merry dance, or whether there's just that kind of uncertainty in his career. He's tweeted and said that obviously he's happy at Atletico, but he needs to consult with the people that are sort of in charge of his career, like assess the situation. He was on a radio show Onda Cero yesterday in Spain. He kind of suggested that he is happy at Atletico, but his agents have spoken with the club president. It's in the club president's hands as to whether he stays or goes. And really, even if Atletico fans might take some comfort from the fact that he said that he is happy, which suggests that he would stay, it's never good to see one of your players who, I would presume is probably one of the biggest shirt sales of. He's one of the heroes. He's one of the iconic marquee names that they have. If he isn't appearing to be 100% with the Atletico project, then it doesn't really show him in the best light. I mean, what they can kind of hope for is the fact that this TAS ruling, Griezmann might think that he will at least give it until January, to ensure that Atletico aren't just completely left stuck in the mud in terms of having not really many options up top. But yeah, I mean, with what he said in the media, I mean, yesterday, I don't know if you saw it, but one of the companies which he is sponsored by, like a mobile phone company, he was in an advert for them, and basically it involved, this wristwatch phone sort of thing. And on that advert, someone was calling him, and it said, like, Jose is calling, and he put the phone down on the call. So, I mean, there's all kinds of little subliminal messages to and fro. I'm sure that people at the club and just around the world, if depending on who you support, will just be scratching their head and wondering which way it's going to go. But, I mean, I would really be surprised if Atletico didn't try their very, very best to keep hold of him until at least January, because otherwise I think next season wouldn't be, an extreme to say it could be a complete disaster.
Yeah, I mean, some people saying, though, that was people close to Atletico or Atletico fans know that his best friend is it Jose Gimenez, and apparently that's what that Jose meant, not Mourinho. But you can see the way it's played out. That's quite interesting, as you say. But what do you expect now, Simon? I mean, you're very close to Spanish football. You know Griezmann better than anyone in Manchester. You know the type of guy he is from interviews. You know the way he plays. You know how much he does love Atletico. Do you expect him to stay now that this ruling's happened, or do you expect him to go?
It's a tough one, because I would expect him to stay based off this ruling, but the fact that he has already made it quite public that he is, weighing up his options, it doesn't suggest that there's 100% commitment either way. I would just say that Atletico, I presume they'll probably be begging with him to stay at this point. I mean, after this ruling, you can't be relying on Kevin Gameiro, you can't be relying on Angel Correa. No one's going to be, putting up the kind of numbers that Griezmann is, and as well, I mean, it's not in isolation that he only provides. He's prepared to drop back. He's prepared to track back and, put himself about and win a lot of balls back deep inside his own half. So it's really, it's not just that you're losing your goal scorer. You're not losing just the man that puts the ball in the back of the net. I mean, he's an important part of the support system all over the pitch. I mean, personally, I wouldn't see him leaving down to this ruling, but that doesn't mean that he won't. I mean, it's very hard to tell. With Manchester United, obviously, David Idol, the whole number 7 shirt, I think that would probably speak out to him quite a bit. And he's always, erred on the side of not ruling out a move to Manchester United. So it is a tough one either way. I mean, you would think that in the situation, and given how Atletico have given him the platform to really develop and become such a key man both for them and for France, that he'd be prepared to give them that extra 6 months minimum. But with the way that, Manchester United, they can afford to pay this release clause, I mean, until Atletico are, notified by the league that it has been, exercised and that it is possible that he could leave, I really don't know. It could go either way, and I'm sure that's not what United fans want to hear. But I mean, it's a very complicated situation.
I was going to say, Simon, I really think this could drag out the whole window, and it's not going to be an easy watch for any fans.
I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, it can easily drag out when you've got these kind of ambiguous things that Griezmann's saying in the media. I mean, the majority of things that he says, I mean, obviously, you can take from them that there is this part of him that would like a move to Manchester United. But then you can also take from it that he's very happy at Atletico and he would happily stay, and he's got a good relationship with everyone at the club. So it is really hard to see which way it will go. If Manchester United do get him, then they'll have a fantastic player. But the damage that it would do to Atletico this summer would be, as they've said in their press statement, I mean, it would be absolutely irreparable.
It's going to be such an interesting summer surrounding both Griezmann and Atletico now that this ruling has come out. Simon H Football, make sure you go and give Simon Harrison a follow on Twitter, especially going into New Zealand, the new season, and going over the Champions League weekend. He provides insights and articles for so many different outlets. Simon, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. It's been a pleasure to be on. I'll be happy to come back after the final.
Thank you, buddy. We look forward to chatting to you. We're Boxing Ballers. Make sure you click subscribe. We're out of here. Thank you for watching.